Okay, recording is started.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our August monthly Data Managers call. Um, this morning, we are joined by Nick Muntz from PCG, and he is actually up first on our agenda. We don't have a lot of items to cover this morning, but we hope to give you some good information that will at least lighten your stress load. So we hope. Okay. And first up, we have Nick.
Hey everybody, glad to be here. Happy to see you folks this morning. The main update we have from the EdPlan SC side is that the child count report has now been published within AR for your viewing and feedback. So within the federal reporting folder, where you might have found your indicator 11 report or your indicator 12 report, you'll now see a report titled child count. Within that report, there are two tabs. The first tab is the submission data. So it's going to be that big wide table with a lot of columns. That's going to be the thing that pulls up when you first access the report. Within that report, some cells may be turned red. If a cell is turned red, that means it violates one of the conditions that we saw a lot of work on in the last year when we were submitting these reports from those flat file Excels. We tried to highlight those in the report this year so you can see them before you even have to download the report and submit it to the state. Some common things that will be highlighted red as a violation of a constraint are a student school-aged on the October child count date but has an early childhood placement. It could be the reverse, a student who is early childhood on the child count date and they have a school-age placement. It also could be a student who is tagged with developmental delay as their primary disability and their age does not match the age range for that disability, or it could be a missing placement value entirely. So when you load your report on that first tab, you'll see all students, and the ones with a violation of one of those rules will be turned red. And there'll be a second tab that says errors. If you click on that error tab, you're going to just see the students that are in violation of one of those constraints. When I say in violation, it could have been a misclick when someone was selecting the placement, but those are the items that you'll want to proactively address before getting to the submission window. And I know we're 2 months to the day from the child count date of October 28th, and this report is out early in order to gather your feedback. I know through the past year, the reports have been released much closer to the submission dates. This year, we strive to release them much earlier so we can see what you see in the report. And please submit all feedback through Zendesk. We'll be able to provide support there. We'll collaborate with folks at OSIS to talk through your questions and see if we need to adjust anything in the report that might not be displaying quite correctly. When you do submit a Zendesk ticket, please put the words child count in it. That will tell our support team to send it straight over to me so I can go ahead and answer that and help you out. If you don't include child count in that title, it'll still find its way to me. It might just take a little bit longer. So the summary is the child count report is now in the federal reporting folder of advanced reporting. There's a tab for submission and there's a tab for errors. If you have any questions, please submit a Zendesk ticket, put child count in the title, and it'll make its way to me so we can collaborate on your questions. Carolyn and team, anything to add? And then any questions from the group?
No.
Melissa, that's a great question. So if you see nuns, and I'm certain just about everyone will have at least one none value. The most often time we see that is when students are being served under a comparable services statement, but the LRE was not selected in the workspace prior to the generation of the comp services. If you have questions on specific students, please submit those into Zendesk and we should be able to take care of those quickly. But the most common reason for a none appearing is they're being served under comp services and there was a misstep when that was generated. It's pretty easy to correct. Reach out in Zendesk and we can help you out there. That's all I've got. Carolyn and team,
Okay.
back to you.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Nick. Alrighty, next on our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the 24 closing out of the 24-25 reports. Right now, Andrea is working on the clarifications and contacting those districts that still have missing data, or she still have additional questions on what was submitted. Please make sure that you make your corrections in the spreadsheet and at the source, whether it be at Plan or Enrich. Um, if you have specific comments that you would like her to know about that particular child's information, please add that in the comment column in column B and return it via ADT. If you see the statement that in order for the coast to be completed, it must include entry and exit dates, your entry and exit outcome scores, and the progress. If any of those items are missing, you're just going to see the general statement missing coast, right? So you need to make sure that you have all of those items there. In the event that the student is still receiving services, please notate that the student is receiving services or still actively receiving services in column B, and that will take care of that population of students, okay? Um, Duplicates. If you see duplicates, whether it be in your district or out of your district, if the student was with you and they transferred, please just notate that the student moved. If the student came to you from another district, and is still receiving services, just notate that, and that's what will clear that student from your list. Likewise, if the student is duplicated in another district, we need to know exactly where to count that child. If an exit entry coast appears, we just need to clear the duplicate off of our records because the students are counted in the district in which he or she exits. Include in the report, that means that we have everything we need, and at a bare minimum, that student will be on your coast report. Just to reiterate, missing coast, you need to check for your entry exit dates or entry exit outcome scores and the progress. Um, you should not see a missing son's ID number, but experience has taught me that when you are working in the spreadsheet, it is possible to mistakenly remove the son's ID number. But if it is missing, please make sure that you go back and add that son's ID number. In the event that the son's ID number is missing and COS is missing, it may be a test student, but we don't know and we don't want to assume. So just double check your entries. If it is a test student, just let us know, and then also submit a Zendesk ticket that a test school or test student is appearing on your report so that they could take care of this because they should be removed or excluded from your report. If you see impossible just basically means that when we're looking at the progress of the students, it's showing that the students, their outcome is greater than their entry, and for progress, it's showing no, and it should always be a yes. So that's basically what the progress means, or that the progress score is missing from the report, okay? I believe it was last month, someone asked for an updated training on early childhood, since we have a new system, new processes. So that training will be included with the Early Childhood Inclusion Conference, which will be September 25th. And the registration link is included in the PowerPoint that was emailed on yesterday. So if you're interested in attending that information, that is where Sherry Evans will be providing that training. So there's that information for those of you who wanted updated guidance on early childhood. For indicators 11 and 12, That is another one of Andrea's report. And as you know, she's still working on indicator 7. So once she wraps up indicator 7, she'll start working on 11 and 12. For those of you who in the interim may have forgotten to submit your report, please, please, please go in and make sure that you have submitted that report under the FY 24-25 reporting year and not the 25-26. Okay, so you still have some time to get that information submitted to us. Okay, and yeah, table 4. I hope this is one that we are able to shed some light to. We were finally able to complete the review that we received from ORTA, and based on some of the enriched district submission and testing data from a particular district, we feel pretty confident, with a 5% margin of error, right? We feel pretty confident or comfortable that the data is closely aligned to what it should be. We did send that file over to PCG on yesterday, and we have a meeting scheduled for this afternoon to review that. So hopefully, we should have a solution for you, a tentative solution, and I'm crossing everything that we will have a solution or have a process in place to have those students out by end of next week. Nick, am I being too hopeful?
No, I think that's accurate.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Sheila, I do see your hand, and I will come back to you. Believe it or not, we are pretty much halfway through the PowerPoint. I don't want to go off and get sidetracked with questions, so we will definitely circle back around to you, Sheila. Okay. Table 5, another one. Hopefully we have some good news for you. Albert is done with his preliminary um, completion of the Table 5 report, and Yolanda is doing her double check, and we hope to have that to you also by end of next week. So pushing a lot out back to you guys to help close out the 24-25 school year. Indicator 8, not so good. So we have mailed out the postcards, and we're also able to send out about 20,000 emails. Now we are attempting to, of those emails and postcards that was sent out, we've only gotten about maybe 2,500 responses back. So with the postcards that were returned, we are doing one last call out, if you will, and we're dividing and conquering. We are spreading out those postcards within the office here and trying to contact those parents to get their responses for the survey. Nonetheless, once we are done, we will send out the results via ADT with your percentage that will be on your determinations, your FY24 determinations that will be distributed in June of 26. Just trying to create avenues so that when the data profiles come out, you're not shocked with the results that's on there, but you would have seen it in one of our summary results reports prior to the release on the website, or even the draft profiles being issued to the districts. For our indicator 14 report, we have for those non-opt-in districts and the opt-in districts that had 3 attempts, no contact, we actually added your data back into the source file and sent that over to the vendor. That was uploaded to the vendor on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. So they now have that file and are starting the process for the vendors. They have until October 31st to complete those surveys. So sometime in November, you'll get your results, your final results for your indicator 14. Everyone should have those. That file that summary will also have your results that will appear for your indicator 14 data profiles that will be published in June of 26. All right, so talking about the 25-26 indicator 8 reporting districts. Those reporting districts are listed here once again. We are trying to include the parents' information as a part of the child count report. We hope we're able to do that just to kind of help validate and lock in the students that we are that we will the parents of the students that we will try to contact for the indicator 8 report. As always, because of Greenville's population, Greenville is surveyed every year over the 6 years, and so we use a sixth of their population every year. So once again, just to kind of get a head start on your parent contact information, we're looking to include that in the child count report. I see Nick responding to some. For those of you who are just joining the call, if you have not done so already, please enter your name, your district, and your role or title in the chat if you have not done so already. Let's see. A couple of reminders. The child count, as of now, child count submission date is November 7th. We're praying that all goes well now that that report is out there. And we certainly have a head start on that report. The count date is October 28th. That means that every student in your district enrolled in receiving special education service, special education and related services should be included on your report, to include those students who also have expired IEPs. Okay, so those students should be on your report as well. Just a little different this year. For the child count date, I had this conversation with Michelle, and she has assured me that your child count report does not impact your funding. So we're going to count the students where they are enrolled on that day, unless we have a duplicate, a child coming through on the report, and it's showing that the student is enrolled in both districts on October 28th, I will reach out to both districts to resolve that duplicate to ensure that the student is only counted once. Uh, let's see. So just remember, wherever that child is on October 28th, that's where the student will be counted, okay? Just as a reminder, please do not alter the submission spreadsheet, meaning do not insert columns, do not remove columns or rows. However, that spreadsheet is downloaded from the system, make your changes within the spreadsheet, within the cells, but do not insert or remove columns. That messes up the query when we are trying to compile all of that into one. So remember, if your spreadsheet contains PII information, please do not email it to us. That is a violation. You're putting your students' information at risk and jeopardy of some of it getting into the wrong person's hand, and you certainly don't want those kind of issues on your hands. Your submission represents that the validation represents the validation / assurance that your data is correct as of that date. Once again, we are working this process so that as we move forward to creating the reports from the ODS, we will tell them the plan is, we will give them a date, and they will pull your data as of that date. That was the initial plan, and that is the plan as of right now. Should that change, we will keep you posted and let you know, but that's what your submission dates are being utilized for in our current practice / process. If you have students that should be removed from your spreadsheet before you submit to us, just send us an email with the student ID number and tell us that the students need to be removed. for those 24-25 reports, we did have the report to include students that were outside of the reporting year. And just a reminder that the OSIS will mass remove all of the students outside of the reporting year. So you do not have to tell us to remove those students because we will. But if you have a student that falls within the 24-25 reporting year and you need them to be removed from your report, certainly send us an email with that information in. Okay. Once again, just a reminder that test schools should be excluded, but if you do have one that's showing up, let us know. You could send that to the Special Education Services email folder, as well as submitting a Zendesk ticket so that they could remove them from your reports, okay? But they need to know that they will assist, and they're very diligent about assisting. They just need to know that it needs to happen. Okay. Just remember that all corrections must be made at the source, should be made at the source, must be made at the source, right? And if you're unable to make a correction at the source within your system, please submit a Zendesk ticket so that they could investigate to determine why that is happening, and they will assist you from there. I know you want us to know, whenever there's an issue, and we certainly appreciate that, but it should also accompany a Zendesk ticket so that it puts it on their radar. We don't want to assume that everyone's ticket is the same, and each may have a slight nuance. So it's always best practice to submit those tickets in case you're having any errors or issues within your system. Remember that there is a 24-hour delay for any changes that you make in your system in order for that to appear on the AR report. So any changes that you make today, you will not see them in your system until tomorrow, okay? Just a reminder to those enriched districts, you should always submit your report to OSIS via ADT and send us an email, okay? All right. We're actually at the end. Our next monthly meeting is September 25th at 10 a.m. And we're going to attempt again to incorporate our systemic verification checks for indicators 7, 11, and 12. And remember, these are not from a data collection standpoint, these systemic verification checks are not required. It is voluntary, but it's also an insight to your data as we transition through the year. So if you submit and you have corrections that needs to be made, and you get those corrections done before your final submission, that is one step closer to assuring you that your data in your final submission is accurate. So use it as an opportunity for us to check your data to tell you if anything is wrong. Once again, strictly voluntary. You are not required to participate in a systemic verification check unless you have been told that you have to participate. Okay. Once again, our monthly meetings are the fourth Thursdays of every month at 10 o'clock. Please feel free to share this with anyone that has a vested interest in special education data reporting and collection. Once again, contact your technology coordinator to add or remove any new staff or employees to the special education data managers role in Deans, as well as you may find it beneficial to also ask your IT coordinator to give you access to the incident management coordinator role in Deans as well, so that you're able to get the information about the incident management for discipline / Table 5 report. Okay, and as always, our resource locator, we will put the PowerPoints in the resource library, as well as any relevant information for the districts. And so now we are going to go over to the chat for questions. And I know Sheila had her hand up a while ago. So Sheila, if you don't mind, Albert, if we can
Yeah, she should be able
unmute.
to unmute herself and ask her question if she needs to.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, good morning. I was trying to get my question in right after Nick was finished, because I think it may be a Nick question. So my question is about the LRE placement. And someone may have asked this before, I'm just not sure. So is it any way possible to add that option to add the additional LRE, the date when the student leaves early childhood to school age in Ed Plan? That's one question. And for the students who were early childhood now on the child count report and who should have a school age placement, is that something that Ed Plan can work out perhaps in the background, moving the right LRE placement to the school age for those students now? Two questions.
Yeah, both great questions. So the first one, you're hitting on a great theme, Sheila. I think what by far you'll see in your district's error tab most often are kindergartners who have a pre-K placement, likely because they have the IEP written in like March. The case manager writing the IEP chose the placement as of today, but that question says, what's the placement in October? So for now, the way to correct that will be refinalizing an event, choosing the other placements. But moving forward in December, there's going to be a release to the system where you can select multiple placements for multiple periods. So you could say, today this student is in a service provider location, but in fall, they will be in the regular class 40 to 79% of the time. That is not possible today.
And you said that,
but yeah.
And that's going to happen when, Nick? I'm sorry. When is that going to happen, that option to include the multiple?
Our December release. So
December
when staff
get
back in January will be kind of the first time it's really functional. So for this current child count, that it will not be there.
Okay, and so that means that we'll have to go in and manually change those and do the refinalizing for all those students.
Yeah, that's right. From a system perspective,
for that.
Yeah, from a system perspective, that can be conducted with an amendment without a meeting or an amendment with a meeting, either one. That will allow you to just change that single value rather than rewrite the entire IEP. Yeah. Okay,
I was hopeful, just hoping that there was a perhaps another option for that, but okay.
Yeah, I hear you. And we're hopeful that putting these validations in the AR report can help you see them earlier. I know that last year, you likely saw this, a week in advance, right? You didn't have as much time. So hopefully we can validations, And then Carolyn and team, I think I might just answer the ones remaining in the chat for me.
Sure.
Right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Sheila. All right. Seeing Melissa's question, what is recommended to avoid having none generate on the child count report related to a comp services? And then I'm going to tie that together, Sonia, with your question of do you need to fix the nuns? So the first thing, Melissa, is if you will have a student that's served under a comp services across the 28th, so meaning that they won't have a full IEP written in your district, they transfer in the week before. The step to make sure your staff does not miss is choosing the placement value inside of the workspace. So before they complete that comp services statement, which is in like a separate menu in Ed Plan, they still have to go into the IEP process and choose the placement like they're writing a full IEP. They just have to choose the placement. They don't have to fill out anything else, but they need to choose that placement value. If that is not selected on the placement tile before the comp services is finalized, you're going to get that none value. That links to Sonia's question, which if a student is served under a comp services today, we're 2 months away from the submission, and you'll know they're going to have a full IEP by the 28th. From a system perspective, you don't need to change that. You'll write their full IEP. In that full IEP, we'll choose their placement. Once that's finalized, that will replace the comp service in the report. So the only ones you'll need to make sure you do that step for are the ones that will cross the 28th. If you're going to write a full IEP for the student before October 28th, you don't need to fix that now. All right. I'm reading down the chat.
There's one, Nick, Tania asked, will the graduated students be removed prior to the submission, the child count submission? Yeah,
so that relates to what Carolyn talked about. We're targeting the end of next week with that data from ORDA. Once that's run, those students are inactive, so they won't appear in your report. And then seeing Karen, your question to change the LRE from EC to school aged. From a system perspective, you need to make a new event. And then I won't comment on if that should be a amendment with a meeting, amendment without a meeting. You will just need to make a new IEP event in the system. That is what will stamp that new LRE. If you just go check the box in the workspace, but don't make a new event, the report doesn't see it. You got to actually stamp it with an event of some sort. And then Suzanne, I'm not equipped to answer your question. It leans more on policy, so I won't answer that one.
See what Suzanne's question is. Suzanne, if you would just come off mute and ask your question.
Nick, I
My
have a
question was, oh, sorry.
You go ahead.
My question was if we are changing them from early childhood to school aged and we do an amendment without a meeting, we still have to do a prior written notice?
That is a question for policy, so I'm not policy, so I will forward that over to Katie and have Katie to follow up on that question for you and get an answer to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I see some questions about the Table 4 report and the back and forth. Yes, there have been a lot of back and forth in our updates about Table 4, but we feel pretty confident that the resolve that we have in place hopefully will be deployed by end of next week to close out. And once we're done with that, you will see that Table 4 report also in the AR report for you to download and start looking at it. Once it's available in AR, we will give you a final submission date, but we won't talk about what that time frame will be until the report is actually ready.
Nick, I had a question going back to what you said about comp services and the placement.
Yeah.
So when you do the comp services statement, like if they're, from out of state and you do that, you select the placement within that process. So why do we have to do it twice?
Yeah. It's an unfortunate way the system functions where that placement dropdown is like it prints on the document, but it doesn't store to the same value in the reporting backend. It's something we're looking at for a system improvement, but right now the selection does have to be made twice.
Have any other questions that we may miss?
Yes, this is Melissa with Georgetown. I have one more question related to the child count LRE placement. In the future, is it possible where that LRE placement will automatically generate versus teachers having to actually make that selection? Because what we're finding is they're not selecting the correct one based on the actual service minutes during that window of the child count from that placement. So will there be a configuration to where that actual child count date automatically be generated or populated for the students? Or will it still have to be a manual selection?
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now and with the December release, it will still be manual selection. It is technically feasible for the system to automatically generate it and then lock it, but that is not something it does now. So if you want to see that in the system, send that to Katie at OSIS. She should be able to prioritize that feedback for future system changes.
Do you have any other questions?
This is Suzanne Terry. I saw that Laurie Lee asked for like a one-on-one. Is it possible I could be invited to that also for reporting?
Sure. just send me an email and we'll schedule a time so that we can walk you through one report at a time and allow you to ask questions or clarifying questions should you have any. And that's Suzanne and Dr. Lee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think that's about it. Nick, you might need to get you on the call on these calls more often. Like you were able to answer everyone's questions, and it just makes for a pretty productive meeting. So, I know, I know there've been a lot of angst centered around Table 4, and I think now we're at a point where we will be able to get you some information about that. And the plan is to map over the Power School exit codes to the 7 IDEA exiting reasons, and hopefully those map over correctly, and there'll be minimal changes on your end. We do know that there are some instances where districts will have to verify from the Power School side. They had some students receiving a diploma that probably didn't. Some students may have been coded as receiving a credential and didn't. So those will need to be edited, but it should be very minimal. For those, you'll just modify the exit reason. If the exit reason is correct, then there's nothing that you have to do. But in those instances where the exit reason is different or should be something different, you just select the modify exit reason, and that's what will ultimately print on the report. It will override what's there. So that's the plan. It will require some legwork on your behalf, but we even in the perfect world, we think that just kind of getting a regular cadence with this will be helpful, so it's not as cumbersome on the very end. We're also in conversations about changing the submission date for the Table 4 report, but we'll know more about that once we get through this cycle of reporting. So.
I think I'll jump in really quickly, Carolyn. Just one more
Sure.
plug for Zendesk. We built in those validations based on stuff we saw last year that you had to handle, going back and forth with folks at OSIS. The idea now is to highlight that before you even download and submit the first time. But if you see anything that you don't believe is processing correctly on your errors tab, if you have a question why something is highlighted red, please submit that to us and we can help out with that. And Karen, seeing your note on the notes for the modified exit reason for advanced reporting, that is on the path. It's not something that'll be done immediately or for Table 4 this year, but it will be done by the time we do Table 4 next year. So you can see the explanation right next to the reason, because we know right now you can just see only the reason.
Nick, can you talk a little bit about indicator 12, and I think it's 11 and 12 or is it 12 where the comments for the end process is not a part of the report. And can you talk a little bit about that so districts will know that?
Yeah, of course. So on indicator 11, if you have a student who began the initial eligibility process, but then stopped the process before they reached a conclusion, if you went into that stop process tile and then filled out that page, what can appear in the report this year is just the fact that that happened. So the date that happened will be in the report. But right now, the notes and that box that you check to indicate why are not. So if there are questions or folks from OSIS are reaching out about that reason, that is not in the report, just the fact that it has happened. Is that what you were getting at, Carolyn?
Yes.
And then Jenny, seeing your comment, for the child count on comp services, if we don't have enough time to do a full IEP prior to the count, can we go into the LRE tile after the comp services is finalized to remove the error? You'll want to go into the LRE tile before. So before you finalize comp services, if you want to avoid that none value, which will be flagged as an error, you need to go to the placement tile, answer the guiding questions to select your placement, save the page, then go back to the comp services and finalize it. That will make an IEP event, that will save the value. But if you don't go to the placement tile first, you're going to get the none, and then you'll have to go back and correct that. Dr. Simmons, if they're already finalized, I don't have the immediate knowledge of how long a comp services is valid off the top of my head, but I think we're still far enough out where you might be rewriting a full plan before the child count date. So if you have a comp services showing in your report right now as none, but you know your district will be writing the full plan before October the 28th, before you submit, you don't need to go back and correct that. The only ones you need to make sure that are corrected are the ones who will be served under a comp services on the date. That's the key point.
Sonia, if you can come off mute and talk a little bit about the statement in the chat. If you're able to.
And Carolyn, you're not showing the PowerPoint.
Uh-oh. Sonia, if you're not able to come off mute, just send me an email and then, okay, the LRE as of 10/25, if the student is 5 years old and in kinder, the LRE should be school age. Yes, so students that are 5 and in kinder as of, technically as of the first day of school, but definitely 5 and in kinder as of 10/28, they should have a school age LRE. If the child is 5 in pre-K, that is an early childhood LRE or placement that should exist there. Overdue. Kids. Utility system. Nick, can you talk a little bit about Nikki's question?
Yeah, so I think, Nikki, I'm trying to interpret what you're typing there. So the value that is stored with the student's IEP event is the one in those check boxes within the placement tile. So if the IEP is written and a 3 to 5 or an early childhood placement is selected and the event is created, that is the value that is stored. I'm not sure about the statement when they'll automatically know how to switch the LRE from EC to school age. It stores one LRE, and that's the one that the boxes are checked. If you have questions specifically about what you're seeing in your report, Nikki, let us know in Zendesk, and we can follow up, see what we're seeing from the PCG side, and then connect with OSIS about next steps. And then Tania, seeing your question, that is an update that is coming in December. So really folks will experience that in January after returning from the winter break. You'll be able to select custom periods of time. So you can say for these 3 months, the placement is service provider. For the next 3 months, the placement is regular classroom, but that is not coming out until the end of this calendar year. And then Sonia, seeing your question on the transfer of comparable services, we do see a lot of students across the state that are in this case. So I'll connect with our support team and update our articles and our support resources. The errors that are nones. But again, I want to reiterate, if you will be rewriting a student's full plan before the child count date, you don't need to go regenerate their comp services just to fix that value. As long as you are rewriting a full plan, that will take precedence.
I'm trying not to stir Wendy. Hey,
Wendy, did you have a question? Wendy Ashley?
I know what we're talking about.
It's just the.
Okay, well, if there are no additional questions, Nick, we thank you for being a part of this meeting this morning. So it's been very helpful, very beneficial. As always, our contact information is on the screen. If you have any questions, please send them to our special education services at ed.sc.gov. That email will come to everyone on the team, and we will respond to you as soon as we are able to. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope everyone is off to a successful 25-26 school year. All righty.